Welcome to the Cycles of Consciousness podcast, where we have conversations about integrating rising consciousness. Welcome and hello to all that are watching or listening into the Cycles of Consciousness podcast. My name is Tula Faye. I am deeply honored and grateful to have Maga of Gaia here with me today as my very first guest. Maga is a catalyst for highly in tune and sensitive women, activating women through Maga's divine feminine leadership coaching. Using her expertise in tuning into an individual's feminine cycle and her skilled work of sound and energy healing, Maga guides women to hone her own practice of spirituality. It's truly a blessing to be able to sit down and talk to you, Maga. Welcome.
Oh, I'm so blessed to be your very first guest. It really feels like an honor, Tula. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. I deeply enjoy your work and have really seen a lot of transformation within yourself and being vulnerable with that. So would you please share how you began this journey for yourself?
Sure. I could share a little bit about my journey and how I've I could share. Let's see, where is it that I want to start? I began my journey on this earth as a young fairy child and talking to flowers and that sort of thing, and I felt really a deep connection with nature, and it was really a powerful time for me to connect to that part of myself and that sense of innocence I really always embodied. And I grew up in a very tough neighborhood, riddled with gang violence, and there was a lot of drive-by shootings all the time. And so there was this very real reality, like stark reality of violence that I grew up in. And while having this really sort of magical experience that I would nurture in moments when I was alone with myself. And I experienced sexual abuse as a child for a number of years that really affected me, and it dampened the way that I, just shared myself in the world. And I was kind of like a silent child to my extended family. And I had a really deep connection with my voice. But all the while, would find really a great outlet in expressing myself through the arts. So that was always really prominent, and I always found that to be my outlet. And growing up, I had that, right? I had that connection to the arts, and I later on went to pursue a career as a makeup artist and a fashion stylist / model / musician and performer in Los Angeles. You kind of have to do all these things. You kind of have to hustle. At least that's what my belief was when I was living in Los Angeles. And I lived this sort of lifestyle, the lifestyle of fashionista and that sort of thing, for a number of years, a number of years. And I remember being in a relationship that was so toxic that really woke me up to, all that I had not addressed within myself about my childhood and my past. And so it was a really big catalyst for me to come into greater power within myself. And so I exited this toxic relationship, and it was mutually toxic, I should say, and I dove way deep into my healing path. And I took up yoga and meditation, and I started learning about, the healing arts. And so that's what I immersed myself in. And I started attending women's circles a lot more. And this is when I started rebuilding a relationship to my own voice. And it was in women's circles that I really where I felt the most seen and the most held and safe, because it was a place for me to start expressing myself more vulnerably, more intimately, and to gain a sense of a voice, of regaining my voice. And it was a powerful time for me. And I studied with tantric teachers like Psalm Isadora, whom is now passed, and I also studied with sacred sexuality teachers like Anaya Sophia. And so there's there's this women's wisdom was becoming more of my path, because I was finding so much healing and transformation for myself in these spaces. And it was a space for me to be able to reclaim myself. And I had a traumatic experience with an IUD about 4 years ago, where I had an IUD inside. And it's a, for those of you that might not know what it is, it's a birth control contraption that goes inside of the uterus. And so I had a really traumatic journey, year-long journey with it, where, you know, I experienced really heavy periods, and it was really uncomfortable, and it was really painful for me. And I went on a medicine journey, and in this medicine journey, I got the intuitive knowing in my body, like that it was really causing harm to my uterus and kind of tearing the lining, and it was inflamed. And I was really attuned to the pain there. And I got this message that in order to really fully embody my power as a woman, I had to first understand what it meant. I first had to get in right relationship with my womb. And that was the message that came through to me. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna follow this. I'm gonna take this. It's gonna be part of my path. So that's what I did. And I studied more with new teachers. I trained in the red tent lineage. I trained under this woman her name is Aurora Ray, and she shared with me about women's mysteries and the power in our blood and fertility and all of these aspects of being a woman that I was beginning to redefine and reclaim for myself. And it was such a beautiful time for me to reclaim that. And I studied more with sacred sexuality mentors like Lisa Sator, and she shared with me like womb-based practices and energy practices that I now get to share with other women. And so all this work that I've through my own intuitive also growing, I've come into my healing abilities and recognizing myself as also a healer. And so I began sharing energy healing with women, and I started noticing that there was a common theme that my hands would like kind of flow towards the womb center for women. And so I started offering womb healing, and I combined that with sound healing. And now the work that I'm sharing now in women's leadership is a combination of the women's wisdom that I've learned, right, that I've integrated. And the biggest piece that I integrate is this menstrual work that I've adopted as my lifestyle, really, and the way that I live and navigate my life is really from the seat of my womb. So I've gone back to share the leadership work that I wish I would have had when I was, beginning my journey and sharing my services and my offerings. So a lot of this has come from my own path, right? Like seeing what works for me and then going back and offering that. And now I define my work and like what I'm doing with women. I'm a vision holder for women, because oftentimes, women start their journey in sharing their gifts and their service, and waver in that in between sometimes, when they feel like, well, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Is this really even what I should be doing? All of those doubts that tend to come up, I really hold space for, and I hold the vision for women to be able to rise into that vision more authentically and more powerfully. So I bring my whole toolbox of things that I get to share. And I just really love doing this work. It feels so soul aligned, and it feels like it's such a blessing. And I know that was quite a long story, but it felt like all those pieces, really helped me to shape who I am. And I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be having this conversation if it weren't for any of those, these experiences. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
It does, and so well spoken. And what a beautiful journey, to come through like such adversity and also a great show of resilience, to see that, but still like go for the goodness in life and go to like heal others. And that just speaks to who you are as a healer, to have these experiences and keep going through and connecting to what's been most important to you, like finding your voice and tuning into your own body and knowing, something that I find with your work that is so special is how you are able to define and see women at each part of their cycle. So constant, like the way that I defined a really wonderful healer is that they meet you where you're at. So it takes a certain like level of empathy and presence, and mindfulness to meet someone where they're at. And especially as women, we have cycles, so we're like up and we're down, and sometimes we're sideways, and you can meet them there and give them information when they're there that makes more sense, because we do live in a society that's so linear, like based on deadlines and so on and so forth. So thank you for sharing all of these pieces of your story. So as you have stepped into your work, what obstacles have you faced?
Oh, so many. Oh,
it's like powerful.
Yeah.
It's like lesson learns.
Well, in this path as being a such heart-centered, servant, one of the biggest challenges that I've faced within myself is my attachment to scarcity consciousness. And what that has meant for me and how that has manifested as challenges in my life is that I've, in this journey, I've found myself like homeless at one point. And I remember asking myself, like, how is it that I'm here? And then that experience of me, like, like bopping from place to place, from one friend's home to another friend's home, really showed me just how supported I was. So what was actually a challenging time, right, where I was having this experience of hearing the thoughts that were surfacing around like what that meant about me as a person, like the negative stories that came up, that was the most challenging part. But what was on the flip side, right, I got to see through that challenge was that if I just shifted my attention to focus on how supported I was, because here were all these friends saying, yes, we believe in you, and yes, you're, in this situation, and we love you, and here, you could stay here, that sort of thing. I learned about how supported I was. And so I think the biggest thing about challenges I think the biggest challenge in general is my own narrative of what I believe is happening. And like I said, it all kind of stems from this place of believing that there's not enough of something to go around. And that has really created a big disconnect inside of my being to create these kinds of situations. And that was one of the most prominent challenges that I've faced. And then another one that I would say is that one of the challenges that I've had in the past is learning how to discern where to place my energy. And so I've had this habit that I'm still, practicing that I'm currently getting better at managing is of overextending myself. And so one of the challenges that I've experienced has come from that. And if I really think about it, right, it comes from that that part of myself that believes that I have to be everything to everyone. I have to do it all. And in a way, it also stems from that part of myself that has held on to scarcity in a way, because if I believe that I have to do everything, then, you know, I believe that I'm not trusting enough. And that's been a theme that I've worked with a lot, overextending myself. And the most recent example of that was when I was going to school and also starting my business. And it was so challenging. It was like, you know, I had this idea and expectation going into it that I could do it all. And yeah, like, you know, I could do anything. And at the same time, I was moving the ball forward, but what was happening was that it was not happening at the rate that I wanted it to. And it was so hard to be able to keep up with my own expectations and what was actually happening. And it was hard for me to reconcile the two and have compassion for myself. But I reached the point within myself after that whole experience happened, where I was like, wow, I was being really hard on myself, like going through that experience and expecting myself to show up 100% in all the ways and have a relationship and have friendships and then share women's circles and, you know, be of service and all of that. And so it just really like showed me that where I was being really hard on myself, and where I was setting unrealistic standards for myself that I ended up beating myself up for. So the challenges that I face have all been created by me. And it's funny because I always have the solution for them, you know? So it's like, it's funny that we create these challenges and then also have, through that, are able to find our way out. And so because of that, it's kind of a blessing because of this challenge, I came up with this way of living, and it's not anything new, right? It's something that I learned as well of living in alignment with the menstrual cycle. It's something that I went back to. So that was what got me through that challenging time, to be able to integrate it into the way that I live and work, because I was just kind of like doing it all and without any discernment and that sort of thing. And so now I have a little bit more discernment around what I'm engaging in and where to place my energy at what time. And this is still something that I have to watch for within myself, because it's a habit. It's so easy, right? It's so easy to kind of like just say yes to it all. And it feels really good to say yes. And like one of the things that I'm starting to embody more is being more protective over my creative time, because I am a creator, and you know, we all are. And so in any case, that's what's been most challenging. And yeah, it's like I've been able to see myself out of it as well.
How wonderful to like see yourself out of your own challenges around this.
Yeah, and you end up creating them, like we all kind of do, to some degree.
As you like cultivated your own wisdom and like connecting with your cycle, why do you think it's important for other women to make their spirituality, or to like craft their spirituality?
Because I believe that when a woman is empowered to take full responsibility for her power, that the creations that woman makes and brings through her vessel, whether that is a child, whether that is a project, whether that's a business, whether that's a video, whether that's whatever it is, music. When a woman brings through a creation, through her vessel, and manifests it in the world, I believe that the level of the vibration at which that creation is at really has the power to lift our world up. And I feel that it's important to recognize just how powerful creators we are as women. We're really powerful. And I believe that it's important for women to know this now, because my mother didn't teach me, my grandmother didn't teach me, and it really is now is the time to be the generation of women that are gonna share this with the next generation. And so I keep thinking about when I come back to in this work is like, what is it that we're going to be handing down to the next generation? What kind of world are we going to be handing down? What kind of earth can we keep creating and weaving for them so that we could pass it down to them? And so the level of integrity in the creations that are created through women that fully inhabit their feminine power has the power to shift the very culture of the world. And I really believe that. I fully believe that with like every cell of my being. It's so important. It's just so important. And we're able to create heaven on earth together when when women, gather to remember this power within themselves. So there's so much to it, and it really isn't about us, right? Like, it's about the next generation and what we're handing down to them through our creations, through our teachings, through the way that we live. And so for me, I just keep thinking about the next generations of little star beings that are coming through, because they're coming through so wise, and we have to be able to meet them where they're at. And that's a really big piece. And understanding our human experience more fully is one of the biggest keys that I've found. And I just so passionately share this with everyone.
Yeah, and that's definitely why I invited you for Cycles of Consciousness, because we're bringing back something that our ancestors knew, and we're passing it down for 7 generations and beyond, right? It's so beautiful that you talk about the power of owning your cycle. So what would you say to a woman that has completely disowned her cycle, and because there's that out there, they're ashamed of it or disgusted by it? What would you say?
Yeah, so I would say that I think the first thing to look at is what aspect of your cycle do you feel the most shame around? And if you can, get into a space of curiosity with yourself and ask yourself, well, why is that I feel that I shouldn't talk about this with my partner? Or why do I feel like maybe I should just not address it and sweep it under the rug when I'm out in the world and being in the world? And what part of myself am I willing to meet? And oftentimes the parts that are in shame, right, hold the most knowledge for us, and power for us to be able to claim, because what's right underneath that shame is our greatest illumination, really. So one of the things that I would encourage women to do is to just begin writing in their journal, to keep a journal and keep a log of 3 basic things. So you want to keep a log of your energy levels, physically, your physical energy levels, your mood, your emotions, and your thought patterns. And at the very, what's tying this all together is each day you could write what phase you're in. So if you're not familiar with what the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle are, you could Google it and you could look at the different phases. And also I have a menstrual flow chart. So you can look at the menstrual flow chart and look at the different phases that you're in, and just begin like writing these like little bullet, small, like one sentence accounts of what's taking place for you day to day. And you're going to begin to notice that there's these subtleties and shifts that you experience every month. And oftentimes a lot of what comes up is very cyclical. I mean, it is cyclical. It's all cyclical. And so you begin to have an awareness with yourself. You build a relationship with your menstrual cycle. And from there, you're able to build a relationship of true intimacy with other people. Because what happens from there is that once you begin to understand and intimately know your own experience, you can then share with other people how to interact with you and how to be able, how to best, be with you. And there's no greater power than to know yourself fully and to come in understanding of that. So I would, begin to get curious with yourself around the parts of yourself that feel maybe disgusted around, your own blood, or maybe even feel shy about talking about it, and just ask yourself, why is that? And you might even recall stories or times and experiences where you have been shamed or you have experienced some traumatic, happening around your cycle or that sort of thing. And these are questions that begin to kind of it's like just taking a look under the rock and just seeing what's there, because there's a lot there that wants to be integrated, and there's just so much power that's waiting for you when and you have the willingness to be able to just lift the rock up and be, curious, be like a curious child and wonder, well, what are these things underneath here? So it just all starts with a question and asking yourself, why? Well, why is that?
Thank you for sharing your healing and your work. So I just want you to imagine that you're leading this wonderful movement, and so just imagine that women are taking it and holding it and stepping into their power and scheduling their life around their cycles and their projects and their creations with their cycles. So with that, what change do you wish to see in the world through this work that you're putting out?
Well, it's so big, and I really want for our culture to reflect for the culture of our work life, of our economy, to reflect and integrate this feminine wisdom and integrate these feminine rhythms. So what I envision is offices and teams and startups, and companies being able to integrate this awareness and this wisdom into the very way that the companies and businesses are structured. So women's work week looks a lot different than what it looks like now, which is the basis of the 9-to-5 model, which is really it feels so like it's on its way out, and a lot of women, and the more women I talk to, we're really embracing a new way, which is also you just said, it's not very new, right? It's old. It's like we're just remembering this. So I imagine our economy changing completely because of it, and the way that women work. So in a very day-to-day fashion, and how businesses are run. So I envision this being the norm, in 15-20 years. This is what I see. I see that companies are just going to be integrating this, and the more that women become aware of just how powerful it is to live this way, the more the word is going to spread, and the more we're going to vouch for this, right? Vouch and really stand up for it. So I envision our work week looking a lot different. We spend most of our life, our life force energy working, and I feel that is that the way that we work should reflect and be flexible to our needs, and not have our work be this sort of cage that we put ourselves in to produce and produce and produce, but to leave room for inspiration and to be as flexible and adapt to our needs. And when we integrate that, I really believe that what is produced and the businesses that are ran with much more integrity and infused with much more consciousness. And the solutions that these businesses can provide just really become infused with values of life, really, like that sustain life. And because at the very basis, if we're taking into account the life givers of the world, the women of the world, we're really taking a stand for life, right? For life affirming values.
Yeah. And you're right that there's not much thought about like the cycles of a woman, or even the cycles of life. And we're even like on a planet that has its own cycle that moves in a circular fashion. And I'm an astrologist, so that's what I constantly think about, is that we all have our own transits psychologically, depending on like how we're circling in our solar system. So thank you for sharing so much today and sharing your amazing work. So what's next for you?
What is next for me? I'm gonna be sharing a red tent at Lightening in a Bottle. It's a music festival, arts festival in California, and I'm gonna be sharing a red tent women's circle for 3 nights there, May 24th through the 26th. And it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited. It's going to be really great. There's a lot of love that I'm putting into the experiences there, and a red tent really is a space for women to come. Traditionally, it was a space for women to come together and bleed together, that we're all in the same cycle. And so in this festival setting, right, we want to create a space, safe haven for women to come and bleed, and also anybody that is not bleeding could come and enjoy it in the experiences there. So we're going to sing, we're going to connect to our wombs, we're going to do I just have so much love and so many really cool activities planned for the red tent there. So that I have coming up, but on a more grand. Say again?
Where in California is Lightning?
I'm not sure. I think it's in a lake. I forget what the lake is. I actually have to look it up. But it's in like Central California. Yeah. And I was gonna say that in like a year vision or down the line, I imagine myself sharing this work with women with bigger groups, in person retreats, and definitely want to be sharing my songs more and music more, and combining that and all into the work that I do, which I already do, which is really wonderful. And I am coming out with a short ebook very soon as well. So I can't wait to share that with my community. It's called Embracing Your Menstrual Cycle as a Spiritual Path. So I have that coming up. So I'm writing a little ebook, and I have a lot of really fun stuff, just following the thread of what feels good. That's what's next for me.
Yeah, so definitely follow Maga on social media. What social media platforms are you?
I'm on Instagram my handle is @Maga of Gaia, and you can find me on Facebook as well. I share a lot of videos on there, facebook.com/Maga of Gaia. So yeah.
Wonderful. And how would someone
I currently have a 6-month program called Follow Your Own Rhythm that I'm currently still enrolling for. And there's about 3 spaces left in the group. And it's the group of women that have gathered together are really great. It's a group for visionary creative entrepreneurs that want to step into the next level of their leadership from a more feminine embodied place. So it's part leadership program, part women's wisdom program. It's kind of combining all the things that I love, right? Rising as a leader and also remembering this wisdom and this way of the womb.
Yeah, definitely go for that for those that are listening and watching and residents with her, because it's definitely a transformation for sure. And I can speak to my own, even though I only have like 1 month this year, I wish that I got more for sure. So, thank you for your time, Mother.
Thank you, Tula, and I trust that this message is going to land with the right ears, and it was such an honor to be able to share here.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Cycles of Consciousness podcast. You can find Maga at magaofgaia.com.